What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Today, we are joined by Senpai ZX0. Senpai, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Sparta. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, we have the topping rune list that did very well at the last BSF regional. So, how was that?
Man, the experience was dope, man. Shout out to Bushi. Definitely was cool catching up with some people. Honestly, I wasn't too familiar with a lot of people, but some people I recognized and they recognized me from Discord. So shout out to the Shadowverse community, very embracive and welcoming. But Vancouver is nice. The event was nice, very well ran.
Okay, so why in the world did you play Runecraft at BSF? That is probably what everyone is thinking.
Yeah, because I made a vow, that I would never, really play Abyss or Dragon. That's just not my style of decks. And Ruin has been a craft I've been faithful to since set one. It literally is my craft. Like, I love it. I think I'll be playing Ruin forever, right? Or at least some rendition of it. Yeah, I would never go away from it. And I feel like honestly, just through testing, just endless testing. Um, it was performing well against everything. I wasn't doing like terrible against anything, and I wasn't blowing anything out of the water. But I always felt like I was in a commanding position against a lot of decks. So that was enough for me to go into that tournament. You're like, you know what? Yeah, this is it.
Okay, and before we get into the deck, so how did you come about building this version of Runecraft?
Yeah, because like this version was because I recognized I got lay of the land a little bit, and I recognize a lot of weaknesses in a lot of decks and a lot of strengths in a lot of decks. And one of the things that I quickly realized that we're in the obviously in the monster heavy meta, right? So spell changes wasn't doing enough because just playing spells to really interact is not doing anything because you're not really putting lethal on the board, especially with all this healing. So spell changes wasn't doing enough. Chimera, it was too inconsistent, right? In terms of like how many times you're gonna come out Chimera to win the game. And like truth be told, sometimes it's incidental, right? You gotta be a little bit sacky with that. Like obviously you play Mystic Ring to kind of like force it, but then at that point you're doing a lot to just get like one linear win condition. So through tests, I just recognized like I could still play like the best cards in the game, right? Which is Israfel, like one of the best cards in the game. Bellringer, best card in the game. And like truth be told, like flame is like harness flame is and flaming glass is really powerful as well too. And obviously ruin for ruin Agnes and Merlin honest in my opinion is some of the best cards in the game right now. And Europa is pretty powerful, right? So just when you look at the deck in a nutshell, individually, a lot of these cards are incredibly powerful.
Okay, so before we get into it, are there any shout outs that you want to give to anyone?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Shout out to Sparta. Thank you for having me on the channel, of course. Shout out to the Shadowverse community. Appreciate y'all, man. Very welcoming. Great community. Honestly, it doesn't any other TCG community don't really compare. And shout out to my local phenomenal games in Jersey at right off of White Horse Pike. Very best Shadowverse local, best Yu-Gi-Oh verse. Best Yu-Gi-Oh local as well too. So please, anybody in the area, please stop by and please join us.
Yeah, show some love indeed. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So we're looking at the first card here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I start from left to right. Now obviously I saved the best for last. So for monsters, three bell ringer angel, self-explanatory. Traditionally, you really don't play bell ringer in ruin because you don't really need her. And truth be told, you also don't have the space to play her, right? But this card is really good, this format. And then I think every format that Bell's in, she's pretty good, right? It's hard to kind of like replace her value for one drop, angelic snipe or in draw card. So she's a angelic snipe and insight in one card, which is really good, right? And like when you play in control, you have to play Bell Ringer. So yeah. Then next card we have triple insight. Triple insight is fantastic. Um, Again, self-explanatory. The reason why I could get away with playing 42 cards, not only to help with inconsistency, because really when you decrease the card count, I know a lot of people said 42. That's kind of like out of the norm, and it traditionally is, but a lot of my lists, you always see like at least 41 because I just like playing for 41 because it allowed me to increase, it allowed me to decrease the cards that I don't want to see, especially when you have a craft like Runecraft that searches and draws a lot. So more, so a lot of times you're seeing the cards that you actually want to see because you constantly filter into your deck. So with Bellringer draw effect, pretty much you're looking at 39, and then with Insight you're looking at 36, right? So you're pretty well positioned to not really brick with those with those three cards because you constantly draw in. Next card, Lamplit Wish to Be. Obviously, like when we get to the Evo deck, you would see I did not play any carrot. So you really can play Angelic Snipes if you want to, if you don't want to invest in Lamplit. But you know, the card is fantastic. I think it pairs well with Agnes, right? That's why I really enjoy it as well. Um, and then like for the next card, we have three Agnes Tachyon. This card is phenomenal. She really helps you in your aggressive matchups, and also she helps you force interactions. And that's the one thing that Spellchain didn't do enough was force interactions. Because outside of Penguin, you're really just waiting for your opponent to do something. In this list, you're always committing to some sort of monster to the board that's threatening, right? And she pairs well with a lot of cards that pitch your opponent in awkward positions. Like in my Fable matchup, like recycling like execution was powerful because like you use it on their reborn amulet. And so when you go like execution and reborn amulet on curve, and then you can go Agnes get it back, so it really sets them behind, especially after they egg, because they really have no way to like kind of recur. At that point, they kind of like top decking, which is hilarious, right? But yeah, Agnes is really powerful. Um, yeah, she's crazy. Um, Next card is Europa. Um, Bushi was like, yeah, let's give Ruin some crazy effects in set four, right? And Europa, with the inclusion of Europa and obviously Stella, like it allows you to play it more aggressive because like you could play her on two, and like a lot of decks cannot deal with her, right? Like if your opponent goes Blazing Breath, like okay, they waste a Blazing Breath on it, and then it doesn't even clear. If your opponent use like Nature's Guidance, it's really a lot, you know, to deal with her going second. Like so I go first because you want to really go first in this deck, like and you because you want to do stuff like Europa on two because then like that's a 3/5 pressure, right, for like 2 or 3 turns, which is really crazy. And then also on your turn three, if you went first and she's on the board with you Evo, you float one, which is crazy because then you could play like, okay, let me float one, and you have like Lamplit still open, right? So then after time that kind of like forces a even tree if your opponent really want to attack. So then she also have Bane on Evo, or you could just use Bell stand-in. So if they deal with her in the next one, you can just Evo Bell, deal with their card, and you still have two floating to hit them with like a Lamplit again, a Surefire, and then you engage Bell, and then you could draw a card. So it's like interactions like that when the early game where it's just like she really allows you to control the early game, right? So powerful in the early game. Um, Next card is Make Some Noise. She really was. This card is fantastic, but it's kind of one of those cards that you either want to see or you don't see because as you get later on in the games, like she is insignificant because Witch Bolt just becomes crazy in the later games, and then you have also concentration. So you're rarely going to use like Merlin trigger makes some noise, right? It's always going to be a witch bolt, especially witch bolts in the grave. So searching it is fine. And then with Agnes, you can always recycle it for that 5 damage. Because those of you know, Agnes with Agnes on the board, that's -1/-1, and makes some noise because you have an Uma card. Like it just plus it does 4. So with those two, is 5 total damage for 2, which is incredibly powerful. So yeah, those two pair really well together. So for that reason too. Next card is Rhymewind. Rhymewind is it's a fantastic card. Again, I'm gonna say that about every card in the deck, like because they just so powerful. Rhymewind, like you could always float two, and your opponent constantly has to think, oh, they have to be playing that card, right? Like it's either between Rhymewind or Surefire open, which is deadly, right? You float two, like they just you playing against Fable, Alice just walks into it, You float 2, you playing against Ramp Dragon, it deals with the Genesis Dragon. You float 2 and your opponent can never just safely just elephant you on 6, right? Because you float in 2 unless they think you're not playing it. And at that point, okay, like that card is crazy. And then at later games, like using Merlin, use Ryan with the top deck a card. So any point in time your opponent commits to the board, like you could just keep top decking the same card over and over again with Rhyme one. That interaction is so nuts. Next card is Surefire Bullet. Surefire Bullet, self-explanatory. The 4/4 killer, right? Thank you, Bushy, for this game for this card. I love this card. It's really good. Again, later turns don't really come up that often, but so many times like you do want that Merlin Evo to use Witch Bolt and then Surefire in your hand to do the 8 damage or the 9 damage. So that does come up a lot. But so yeah, pretty much one of the best spells in the deck. And then we're gonna go right to the Merlin, because I'm gonna say the best for last. Merlin, fantastic card. The reason why I play the deck, honestly, sexy waifu, like she does everything that you need for the deck to make the deck functions. Like so many times, like if I have enough pressure early game with Europa and I go like Merlin, like then Merlin to the Witch Bolt, she just snowballs, right? Because like it's so funny with Merlin, she's like the worst card for your opponent to destroy, right? Because it's like it doesn't at face value, it seems like once we already resolved her effect, like that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. She's not doing anything scary, but like she does everything, right? She forced that interaction. She allows you to use the spell. She allows you to recycle. She's really good. Really good. Stella. Honestly, like if Agnes and Ruin is in Europa is the control, Stella is the glue that puts it all together. Because Stella allows you to play chess, not checkers, because like she allows you to see your hands, like allows you to set up your next turn, set up your hand, set up your graveyard. She does everything, and like she's ridiculous with obviously, and the reason why this deck really functions the way it does, because on 3 to be able to do that on 3, especially after your opponent just either dealt or have not dealt with Europa. Or and again, the reason why you want to play Agnes, you sometimes you can just sacrifice your Agnes when you know you have Stella, or depending on your hand, because then you know she will live. So then you can maximize her potential because like then you get her strike ability, right? Her strike ability in conjunction with insight allow you to see like on strike, check the top one and discard it or leave it there. Pairs really well with insight or bell ringer, because then like you could just trash and always constantly cycle into your deck. Or if you have like one of the pieces like flame or glass in your hand already, and the reason why I play 3, even though like flame sucks. But again, you go sometimes just play and force that interaction because your opponent can't leave that on the board. Like you play any of those cards on 3, they just can't leave them on the board. Um, because I'm dealing with a flame of glass on turn 4 is a lot to deal with, right? Um, but yeah, she allows you to check the top 4. You see you have blue in your hand, get red, right? Oh, which is flame. If you have flame in your hand, get blue. Oh, yeah, better yet, oh, let me get Merlin. Let me put Witchbow in the graveyard. My Merlin is now live on turn 4 or 5, right? Just ignorant stuff like that she enables. For the next spell, concentration. Concentration, honestly, this card fixes the discard dragon matchup. Like again, thank you, Bushy. Like because of this card, I really didn't have any problem with discard drag. I felt very prepared just because this one card existed. Um, because I could just always just recycle it with Merlin. And then oftentimes playing against discard dragon, it's pretty free a lot. You could play some of your spells early on pretty free without having the threat of a monster. That's I think that's pretty much the dragon matchup anyway. Like the early turns dragon really aren't doing anything but trying to ramp, right? So like you really can you're perfectly fine with going to the late game with them as long as you have a constant flow of healing. And the same thing with Fable, like it makes their eggs worse, right? If I go concentration and they go egg, like it just like it go on net. So you lose a hand and deal with my board, like that's kind of bad, right? And with Merlin, like you can do ignorant stuff like on 8, go Merlin, search at concentration if you didn't already have it. And you go to like 5 play points, play the concentration, he'll 3 draw a card. And you go to 2 Evo Merlin, use concentration again, he'll 3 draw a card. So that's 6, right? That is 6. And then your next turn, you could go like boom, drop Israfel on 9, he'll 4 again, Evo her, it trade into the board, right? It's so much craziness. So yeah, concentration is really good. Witchbolt, uh, as a 2 of Witchbolt is probably one of the premier spells in this meta. Like the same thing with what is the Ivy Spellbomb? Like having a 3 drop 5 is really good, right? And I feel like every deck is getting like one of these cards as well too, like a 3 drop deal 5. And for this card is devastating because Merlin, right? Like this card just makes Merlin, and I think this is Merlin also on the cover card, like on the artwork as well too, which just makes it hilarious. But like, yeah, like just Merlin just getting this card from the graveyard is just like so disgusting because again, same thing with like 10, your opponent just drop Bahamut, they just drop Israfel. You can literally go Merlin, search Wishbolt, deal 5, Merlin Evo again, deal 5 again, and draw 2 cards. Like that is a credible, powerful card. And also, this is the one card that allows you to deal with your opponent Ancient Elf on 2 when they have Spring Green protection. So they go Spring Green protection, make your Ancient Elf 5/5. You could just go on your turn 3, Witch Bolt. That's the easy button. Next card is we have Execution. Again, self-explanatory. Allows you to deal with Leonidas Resolve. You go Merlin, search this card. This is what I mean by the deck. It allows you just to play ahead. Like you go Merlin, search resolve. I mean execution. Your opponent can really never safely resolve you, because you know you have that. And then like also in later games, the opponent think they're gonna go Elephant Evo attack for like infinite. You could just like, oh well, I have execution, right? And it's, oh, I can still play through my turns normally, and then like I go Agnes, recycle it. So you can still use it if you want to deal with like an amulet or something like that, and then you go Agnes and use it again. So it's like you get infinite value because they wanted to try to play around a card that allows you to recycle itself with Agnes, right? Second card, now for the neutral followers, and it really is like the icing on the cake of the deck. 2 Israfel. So I believe Israfel is the best card in the game. If your deck could play it, play it. Like I even feel like I think every deck is trying to play it. Like even like Abyss is trying to play it. Like the deck is just really good. It trades really well, believe it or not, to Aegis, right? Like every Aegis, like you could just trade right into it, which is really good. It's like I think it's like the only one card that really does that. Yeah, card is phenomenal, phenomenal card. Um, yeah, and then last but not least, we have the flame package, right? So harness flame, like I said, the worst of the three. We have harness glass, which is really crazy because like this card is a ruin card. Like draw a card and put a card at the bottom of the deck. Like this is a ruin card. If that card would have said discard, like draw a card and discard, it would have been disgusting. Like, oh my lord, it would have been disgusting. But yeah, you put it at the bottom of the deck. So it allows you to, again, like if you draw flame, like so many times, like even if you have flame in your hand, like it's not a bad thing because the minute you draw, you have glass in hand, the minute you draw a flame, you can just still just play it and bot deck a card. And then also too, like so many times, again, if force interactions on turn 3, even if I don't have the flame, like depending on what my hand is, I want like my Agnes or my Merlin to live. Like I force an interaction with glass because, or either one of them, they force the interaction because like if your opponent just even thinks that by you playing it, they think that you already have the other piece, right? So then you just play it, and again, dealing with a flame, a flaming glass on turn 4, like when it swings 7 and deals 7 to the board, that is too much to deal with. I think at that point, I resolved that. I did that once in the tournament, and it just I won the game, right? And then also too, like when you have like both pieces, like because you're drawing so much, like you go turn 7, flaming glass, deal 7 to the board, and your opponent spends their time dealing with that, and then you go turn 8, do the same thing, 7 to the board, like that happens so many times. But yeah, that's pretty much the deck.
Okay, let's go ahead and peek into this Evo deck here.
Yeah, so Evo, we have one bell ringer. Obviously self-explanatory, 3 Agnes Tachyons. Card is fantastic. She has the same effect as the base. This card does a lot. And also too, she's really good against aggressive matchups because like recycling Rhyme one against like aggressive sword. Like so many times, like I go like turn one, play Bellringer, and then turn two, just Rhyme one their monster. Turn three, Agnes get Rhyme one back, War Bellringer, and then turn four, like Agnes pretty much just a trade for like three cards because you have Rhymewing. Agnes is minus one to the littlest guy, and then Agnes swing it to the monster if you did attack. So like she does all that. So between one through like turns 1 through 4, if you have Agnes Rhymewing or Agnes Bellringer, like that's really like the best card you can ask for in an aggressive matchup. The control matchups, you want Europa. Like give me Europa all day. She puts in so much work. And then obviously Europa Evo, Storm, Bane, Ward. Yes, yes, and yes. Like this card is crazy. Merlin, as a three of, and this is the best and the reason why I really enjoy this deck because unlike Spell Chain, you can't really play like three of like the crazy cards, right? You can only play like one or two. Two it's like with Merlin, I could in this deck I could play three Merlin, three Agnes. I literally play like the most powerful EX cards in the Europa because of their fanfare ability. And then last but not least, two Israfels. 10-10, deal 5 to the board. Yeah, card is crazy.
Okay, well, that was the entire deck, so it's pretty beautiful. All right, so let's explain the toughest and the easiest matchups you had when you were up there.
Toughest matchup for me was because I just got, just steamrolled was against a Biscuitroll. My opponent literally, he is playing like he's playing like a mad scientist, but yeah, he played really well. That deck put a lot of pressure just because like cards like Soul Dealer trade really well to your cards, especially trades really well into like Flaming Glass. Like you could go turn seven Flaming Glass and attack and deal seven to the board when it's normally only like one or two cards anyway. So it really doesn't seem like you're getting a lot of value out of it. So you really don't want to do it. And then your opponent could just go like, oh well, Soul Dealer you. And it's just like, well, that did nothing, right? It almost makes it feel like your deck is bad because he was like, yo, I just played 8 cards in my deck to get this effect off, and Soul Dealer just deals with it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy how that card makes you feel. And then like Howling Demon, that card is really good as well too. I think it's probably underrated as well too. That card's really good. So that's like was my worst matchup the entire day. My easiest matchup was Forest. I played against 4 Forest decks and I lost against one of them. And truth be told, that matchup that I lost against Forest was just because like I made a mental error because my previous game that would have got my team into top one and my game in top four, um, the game that I lost against Dragon, because I did a misplay, it carried over, right? I lost my composure. I really wasn't just thinking. Thankfully, like my teammates, carried me on that specific, like on that round because like I needed it. But yeah, we could have got first or second place if I didn't make this one crucial misplay. But yeah, man, like yeah, Forest was pretty easy, man. Like they shout out to all the Forest decks that's play Rose Gardener, man. Thank you, keep bouncing my Israfel back to my hand. I gladly so